Did you catch that? Yeah, in the hands of a player with good mechanical skill, Zeri is an absolute monster, but at the same time Riot are nerfing this champion over and over again. So how good is Zeri actually? Well, when every single stat website under the sun tells you her win rate goes as low as 45% on some days, that can only mean she is complete trash, right? And when I tell you that there is a player who is still rocking a 63% win rate on Zeri despite all the nerfs, that probably means I just cherry-picked a Smurf account who can only keep winning because they play against complete noobs, right? Well, no. In fact, it is the exact opposite. The player in question is actually the pro player Flakked, and he keeps slaying with Zeri and Challenger elo. Keep in mind that you cannot play duo queue in Challenger, which means he does this without any help, all by himself, and his opponents are the best of the best. The fact that stat websites are inherently flawed should be nothing new to you, so let me now show you how Flakked unlocks Zeri's true potential even after all these balance patches, so you can too surprise your opponents with this surprisingly strong champion. The first thing you need to keep in mind is that Zeri has godlike late game scalings, but is really vulnerable during the lane phase. You should definitely avoid confrontation as much as possible at this stage, but that of course does not mean you have no agency. You just gotta be smart about it. For the most part, Flakked simply farms from range with his Q while always making sure the enemy jungler, who of course knows that Zeri is abusable here, can never sneak behind him. Zeri might be squishy, but as early as level 3 you already have huge baiting and outplay potential with your spells. If you play it right, you can stay deceptively safe with this champion, and as you can see, even challenger opponents do fall for this, allowing you to capitalize on their greed. One of your most important tools in these situations, and for mastering Zeri in general, is your dash. Again, if the enemy jungler is good, they will try to abuse your weak lane phase, but with clever positioning, this tool gets you out of very bad situations. As long as you do not allow your enemy to bait this cooldown out of you, they're going to have a really hard time actually punishing you for Zeri's early game. And what works while you're at your weakest definitely still works while you're at your strongest. As an AD carry, you will always be a priority target for the enemy team. But when you hold onto your dash, you are very likely to still make an escape, even when the enemy catches you off guard. A teamfight that starts with you being dead and a teamfight in which you can just stand in the backline and continuously deal damage with Zeri's Q is obviously night and day. The only reason Flakked even dares to position himself like this is because he knows that Zeri's dash allows him to stay extremely safe with nearby terrain. No matter what his enemies do, they will never be able to actually get him as long as he himself doesn't misplay. Many AD carries have to position super passively as to not die in stupid ways, but if you are confident in your skill, Zeri allows you to deal consistent damage with very little risk. And while thick jungle walls definitely make for the most impressive escapes, allowing you to travel distances most champions couldn't even dream of, you can of course still get a lot of value from this spell even without nearby terrain. The distance you can create this way might not look like much. Well, actually, combined with Lee's kick it does look like a lot, but your dash still allows you to deny otherwise devastating plays like this insect right here. Zeri's dash is, however, not merely a defensive tool, but can be used offensively too. You can combine it with your wall laser to quickly assassinate unsuspecting enemies, you can get behind enemy lines to cut off their potential escape route, and you can even cast your ultimate while dashing for a quick drive-by if you cannot safely participate in the fight in any other way. Flakked is just really good at recognizing situations in which it is safe for him to dash offensively, so he doesn't get punished for putting his escape tool on cooldown. But speaking of Zeri's ultimate, it is by far your most important offensive threat. Not only does its chain lightning nullify Zeri's biggest weakness, which would be that her damage can easily be avoided by hiding behind minions, but the massive movement speed bonus makes her kiting with Q outright oppressive. Hitting level 6 is an enormous power spike for this champion, and any enemy who fails to recognize this and disrespects her damage potential will feel the pain. From this point in the game onwards, the enemy can never risk engaging in longer fights with you, since if they fail to kill you quickly, your damage and movement speed will ramp up way too much and they can no longer match you. So, what is their counterplay? How can the enemy deal with Zeri at this point? Especially when you have mastered your defensive dashes just like Flakked, they cannot realistically hope to assassinate you at the beginning of a fight. But they still have one other option to deal with you, and you need to be aware of that if you want to win. Zeri's problem is that once she has ulted, there is no turning back. You need to be able to actually attack your enemies for the ult buff to persist, and now it should be clear what the enemy's best answer is. All they need to do is create a situation in which they can safely bait out your ultimate and then simply disengage before you can stack up your movement speed. Your ultimate will peter out, and then Zeri is much less useful for as long as it is on cooldown, giving your opponents a window in which they can freely coordinate and attack themselves. As long as you are patient with your ultimate, however, and only use it when the enemy is overcommitted, you can fully unlock Zeri's insane kiting potential. She is arguably one of the best teamfighting ADCs in the game with this tool, as her ultimate allows you to do both, carry the fight with damage and clean up as dispersing enemies try to run from you. Unlike other AD carries, most of Zeri's power is not in her auto attack but in her Q spell instead, which doesn't require you to actually have persistent vision of your enemies. This makes chasing through the jungle even easier for this highly mobile champion. Oh, and could we take a moment to appreciate that this little quirk has really funny implications for the Renata matchup? Renata's ultimate might be a devastating tool against any other marksman, but against Zeri it is pretty much as useful as attack investment on a shuckle. Okay, so now you know about Zeri's most important tools and theoretically how to use them for maximum impact. But while mastering her kit with the proficiency of a player like Flakked will be quite challenging, it will at least be very easy to copy his runes and items. So let me show you what he does here and explain the thought process behind his choices. Flakked's preferred rune page is Lethal Tempo, Overheal, Legend Alacrity, and Coup de Grace, with Taste of Blood and Treasure Hunt as secondary. His shards are Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and the matchup-dependent Resistance shard. As shown, Zeri is designed to deal huge damage over the course of longer fights by sticking to her targets with her ultimate. Lethal Tempo is of course the keystone that best synergizes with that playstyle, and the bonus range at maximum stacks fully works with Zeri's Q, as it is coded to behave just like a basic attack, which makes you very hard to avoid. Overheal is just Flakked's personal preference, as he values the late game power that comes with this rune a little bit more than the alternative of Triumph. Triumph is a viable option for you though if you are willing to sacrifice some of your scaling in favor of a slightly better early game. Legend Alacrity is of course the only damage rune in the next row, and especially during the lane phase, the impact of the bonus attack speed is quite significant. Zeri can dodge and kite very effectively, which makes her less prone to poke damage and indirectly devalues the lifesteal you would be getting from Legend Bloodline. Coup de Grace is always a safe bet, but here you again have a real choice, as Cutdown is extremely strong against tanky team compositions. While Flakked overall favors Taste of Blood and Treasure Hunter for his secondary runes, he also sometimes picks riskier options like Absolute Focus and Gathering Storm, for example, if he feels like he's going to have a safe early game anyway. But keep in mind that Treasure Hunter is actually also very strong for scaling, since items are everything for AD carries, while still giving you access to Taste of Blood. This rune does a lot to support you during the lane phase, in which Zeri is after all the most vulnerable, so patching that weakness will make your life much easier. Flakked usually completes his Berserker's Greaves even before finishing his mythic item. This allows him to pressure his opponents with enhanced kiting and Q spam while staying safe himself at the same time. He then rushes Immortal Shieldbow though, unlocking crazy synergies with his passive and with Overheal. This little bit of lifesteal is typically all Zeri needs due to her very safe playing patterns with Q spam, and the actual shield on the item makes it that much harder for the enemy to one-shot you. Once more, they will try to deal with you by killing you quickly with burst damage, but Shieldbow just adds a nice extra layer of protection on top of your already strong defensive movement options. However, kiting is your first and most effective line of defense, so Phantom Dancer is always your second item to enhance your kiting as much as possible. Offensively though, your Keystone, your Ultimate and Phantom Dancer all work extremely well with each other too, turning you into a true team-fighting monster. Since your first two items are crit items, they also perfectly set you up for the 3 items Infinity Edge Power Spike. This core gives you everything Zeri needs, and even your last 2 item slots, which tend to be very flexible for most crit marksmen, are actually highly streamlined as well. Flakked really only ever chooses between these 3 items, and their applications are almost self-explanatory. In matchups in which you went for Cutdown, you probably also need the Giant Slayer and Penetration from Lord Dominic's Regards. Bloodthirster and Guardian Angel, on the other hand, are your defensive options against Fed Bruisers and Assassins respectively. But once you get to that point, your enemies won't have a chance anyway, because Zeri just scales into the late game way too hard. The real problem for you is getting through that ever so crucial early game, because making mistakes in lane will cost you big time when playing Zeri. However, you can avoid these mistakes by employing good lane phase fundamentals, and you can access a full ADC lane phase guide to refresh your knowledge by clicking the link on your screen right there.